section next to them. They will reopen in about a month. Be looking for some information. The coffee is by Mr. Quick today because the Fudge Company coffee machine decided not to work. So Mr. Quick jumped right in there and helped us out with coffee. So we certainly appreciate them. I am Jill Cutler with the Chamber of Commerce.
Drew Dennis with the Industrial Authority.
Doesn't he look official in the morning? I think he looks official. Did you have a good Christmas, Drew?
Yes, I did. There's no cold in my stock.
Oh, I'm so glad about that. None in mine either. Although maybe I should have deserved a little bit of cold. Welcome to our legislative coffee. The first event for 2012 and an appropriate event for 2012. Kim King spoke to the chamber when he first got elected and mentioned this, and we just love the idea. It has been so well received, and we appreciate it. And you and Jim are just so quick to be in there and listen to folks and respond, so we're very grateful for that. So a little housekeeping. We love, this is Jordan's building here, and we just love it, and she's got this for rent for people. The only thing you do have to know is the restroom is through that door right there. So you got to go in that door. Feel free, if you need to sneak up that way, go right ahead and do so. Other than that, we've got some door prizes in the back. Kim King has some info, and I think, Jimmy, do you have some info back there too?
I have cards back there.
Cards back there as well. And then Mike Inman has some stuff on each of the tables. Drew, is there anything they need to know any further about Chamber Industrial Authority?
I don't think so. Just on with the show.
On with the show. Well, Mike Inman, if you'll come up, please. We want to introduce Mike. He is the sponsor for today's legislative coffee.
Thank you, Jill. It's always dangerous to give me a microphone. It was my pleasure. When Jill asked me if I would sponsor this morning, I was honored to do it. 2011 has been a banner year for me in real estate, although I know in a lot of other people it hasn't been. And this is kind of my opportunity to give back to the community a little bit. Not only that, but Senator Higdon and I go back a long ways to freshmen at Western Kentucky University many years ago. So it's always a pleasure to do anything with him. And of course, Kim, our local homegrown state representative, who's making such good waves in Frankfort. Always a pleasure. I also want to just bring greetings to you from Ann McDonald, our managing broker for Coldwell Banker McMahon. If you don't know anything about the company, we're not a lot of presidents. I'm the only person in Mercer County that works for this company. But we are the largest Coldwell banker in the state of Kentucky. And Ann McDonald, our managing broker, is the president of the Kentucky Association of Realtors this year. And she wanted to make sure that I brought you greetings from her and from KAR. And wishing luck to our representative and senator in the upcoming legislative session. So Jill, thank you very much for letting me sponsor, and it's my pleasure. There's some bags in the back if anybody would like to take one. And if you didn't get an ink pen or something, I've got a box of those in the back as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. We appreciate it. There are more chairs up this way, so don't feel shy to weave up this direction. And we want to introduce Kim King and Jimmy Higdon.
Senator Higdon. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us on this blustery January morning, 2012. It's an honor to be here with you, and many thanks to Mercer County Chamber of Commerce, the Industrial Authority, and Mike Inman for putting all of this together. Do you want to say good morning? And then yes. I've just got a few things to go over, and I'm sure you do too.
Okay, well, thank you, and it's an honor to be here this morning, the second time that for the Kim and Jim legislative coffee, and I do want to first say something about Kim and the first dude, Carrie. In the years that I've served in the General Assembly, this is the hardest working young lady I've ever seen, and Mercer County is certainly blessed to have somebody with her skills and her work ethic to be representing you in Frankfort. So, and I thank the media. I don't see anybody from the newspaper here this morning. Okay, there you are. There you are. And thank you for being here. The Harrisburg Herald does a great job with keeping people up on what's going on in Frankfort. We appreciate that. JB at the radio station is also. Kim and I both get to call him every morning and to help keep people informed. And Mike Inman, the chamber, Jill, and Drew with the Industrial Authority, thank you all. I do want to say one thing, and I do have some cards in the back, and Kim does also, but the best kept secret in Frankfort, Kentucky is the legislative message line. And Bill would tell you that this, those green slips, we get a lot of them, don't we, Kim? But the legislative message line is an 800 number, and on my cards back there in the back, that's on there, and I'll make sure we get one to the paper, and they can put that in the, make sure that we have that number out there. But it's open till 11 o'clock every night. So if you're sitting there and watching the 5:30 news, the 6 o'clock news, or 10 o'clock news, and you see something that we've been discussing in Frankfort that day, and the media does a real good job of keeping those issues out there, and you have an opinion on it, or you have something you want to, message you want to get to us, pick the phone up and call. And there's some outstanding people on the other end. You don't have to know the bill number. All you have to do is tell them what's about. They know the bill number. You don't even have to know, you could have, like me, sometime, I don't know if it's volume or age, sometime I don't have quick recall on somebody's name, so if you get there and you can't think of who your senator and your state representative is, just give them your zip code and they'll know who that is too. So they make it very simple, and like I said, it's a great tool, and if you want us to call you back and discuss that issue, put on there that you want us to call you back, and we'll get back with you. Most of them, Kim and I both, will call you back when you call us, but there are times we get into the heat of the battle that we'll get 300 or 400 of those in one day, and it's kind of impossible to call everybody, but we will if you say call us back. Also, this coming Saturday at 8:30 in Lebanon United Methodist Church, I've been doing a prayer breakfast ever since I've elected. This is the 10th one that I've had, first Saturday of the year, to kind of start the year off with prayer. And it was a miracle that I was elected, and I guess it's a miracle that I've continued to be able to serve you. And thank you all for allowing me to do that. But that is at 8:30, Lebanon United Methodist Church in Lebanon. With that, I'll turn it back over to Kim and we'll get started.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Also wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to our son Clayton King. He is videoing our proceedings this morning so that we'll be able to share it with folks that weren't able to join us live. So we'll be able to share that on YouTube, Facebook, whatever format. So thank you, Clayton, for helping us with that. Just a few things that I wanted to go over with you, one being my committee schedule for 2012. And highly encourage you to, if your schedule allows, come join us for committee meetings. I think you will find it fascinating and enlightening, and you just may be intrigued by the process and be inspired to run for elected office yourself. Who knows what that might lead to. But on Wednesday mornings at 8 o'clock in room 129, I will be in Ag and Small Business. On Thursday mornings at 8 o'clock in room 171, I'll be in Economic Development, which probably of interest to this crowd. And Thursday mornings at 10 o'clock in room 131, Tourism Development and Energy. So feel free, you don't have to remember that schedule, but if something piques your interest, just give me a call at my home phone number or the number that Jimmy talked about on our cards, and we'll certainly set something up. If you're not able to join us, you can always access that live on KET.org. KET.org, they're very good about covering committee meetings, and if it's a day like this and you need to be at work or home, you can follow us there. We did have a 2012 session briefing the first few days just before Christmas, and 2 days worth of briefings, the first day being on balanced budgets, and the second on managed care and where we stand on that. I took extensive notes on both of those days and can give you extensive details in following our session if you would like. Basically what Chief Budget Director Mary Lassiter told us was the balanced budgets, in quotes, have been achieved in the past by 4 main ingredients. 1, one-time revenues. 2, one-time cuts. Federal stimulus dollars that have now dried up, and debt restructuring. So all of those are kind of temporary measures, and we are in a boatload of trouble starting today, are we not, Senator Higdon? At the very least, we are $350 million in a budget hole. So it's going to be a lot of hard decisions to make this session, and please stay in touch with us on how you want us to, make those adjustments. On the second day, we had a briefing about managed care and where we stand on that. As you know, that was kind of delayed, was actually implemented on November 1st. And as of, I guess that was December 20th, when this meeting was, we have yet to save one dime in Kentucky. I mean, that may come later, but as of right now, we haven't incurred any savings in that to date. So patients and providers are having some difficulties getting coverage, and providers in getting their medical payments being made to them. So if you have that trouble, or if you know someone that does, I have a direct line of how we can address those issues to the main people themselves. So please don't hesitate to let me know if that's affecting you. I'm sure Senator Higdon will talk about redistricting as well. You know that happens after every census, which was taken in 2010. Kentucky has 4,393,000 some odd. So when that's divided by 100 House districts, to date, the perfect House district is 43,393. So our current district, Anderson, Mercer, and 2 precincts in Spencer County, we are within the 5% under and 5% over range. So being self-contained, we would be in fine shape. But when you look at the overall graphic of Kentucky, far west and far east Kentucky lost population, with central Kentucky, the bluegrass region, maintaining or increasing population. So to help my colleagues in far east and far west Kentucky maintain their range, we're going to have to kind of give up some population in our district to help those folks stay legitimate and constitutionally sound. The general budget, we've kind of talked about that a little bit. We will open the transportation budget as well. And I wanted to let you know about one bill. This was actually the first bill that I authored just from scratch, if you will, instead of just co-sponsoring with other folks. And I can't believe it actually had to be addressed, but evidently it did. We don't have to have a roll call vote, which is a visual account on how we vote on tax raising and taxpayer spending of your dollars. That can be done by voice vote. And I just don't think that's right. I think you ought to be able to hold me accountable and know how I vote on such things. So it's just a very simple vote saying that if it involves raising taxes or spending your taxpayer dollars, that we ought to have a roll call vote, and that shouldn't be decided by voice vote. And I can certainly take some questions, but those are the things that I wanted to do.
All right. Thank you, Kim. That's you're very detailed on your information. Thank you very much. I guess the you know, redistricting is on everybody's mind, so I will touch on that. And you know, you probably a flip of a coin, or you have about a 50-50 chance whether or not I'll be here this time next year as your state senator. And the reason being is what Kim talked about. Eastern Kentucky and Western Kentucky both lost a tremendous amount of population, and the Golden Triangle ended up with it. And we're in the Golden Triangle. And as a majority member in the Senate, you know, I should be able to pick my district. But the district that I have now is grown too much, and I had to give something up. But something has to change because the Constitution says one man, one vote. It should say one man or woman, one vote, but it says one man, one vote. And so to stay within the Constitution, comply with the Constitution, that's where we have the plus or minus 5%. We take that ideal number and plus or minus 5%, we have to stay in that. That's on our state representative House districts and the Senate districts. The congressional districts, it has to be plus or minus one person. And that's a difficult job. So, and the other difficult part about that in the House and the Senate, we do our own redistricting and we approve each other's redistricting. So it's not a problem because we don't have to agree on anything. But we do have to come to consensus and agree between the House and the Senate on the congressional redistricting. So that'll be another conversation. You'll hear a lot about that because there'll be a lot of debate over how those lines are drawn. And Mercer County, again, is in play there. You know, you've seen a couple different drawings of the congressional district. In one drawing, they take Mercer County out and put it in the, I think the 2nd Congressional District. And then another way that I've seen it drawn up is Mercer stays with the 6th Congressional District. But back to the Senate District and Kim's district, as you start redistricting in the west at the Mississippi River, at the east at the West Virginia line, and move toward the middle, you know, I'm getting my districts being, I've seen 7 different versions of my district, and 2 of the versions I get to keep Mercer County. The other 5 I lose Mercer County. So, you know, my preference is, like I said, I'd like to keep my district just like it is, but that's not possible because I'm not within the plus or minus 5%. So we'll know in a couple of weeks how that's going to pan out, and whether or not no matter what, I'll continue to be your senator till the end of the year. But, you know, going forward, I do want to forewarn you that there is a chance that I won't be your senator this time next year. And one of the things that they say about redistricting, you know, every 2 years for a state representative, every 4 years for a state senator, you all get to choose who you want to represent you. But they say of redistricting, every 10 years, we get to choose who we want to represent. That's not entirely true, because it is a very difficult process when you try to, and we had an exercise recently in one of our meetings to, you know, go through and you know, draw these lines. And like I said, when you have to stay within that plus or minus 5%, you can't carve up counties unless a county in the Senate districts, unless a county is large enough to be a Senate district in itself. We only have 3 counties in Kentucky that are that large: Boone, Fayette, and Jefferson. So none of the other counties can be carved up. So it's a very difficult task, and it's not as easy as saying this is what I want and take it. And the House side, you know, they're not allowed to split a county up, carve it up, unless it's large enough to be a House district in itself, which it had to be the population of 43,000 or more. So Mercer County is not in that category. So constitutionally, they can't split Mercer County in half. Or they have in the past split up Spencer County for some reason, and nobody's complained, and they've done that the last several times. So if when you see Kim's district, when it comes out, or there could be some lawsuits. We had a major lawsuit back in 1990, when they did the 1990 redistricting, or 92, there was a lawsuit, and they didn't finish up the redistricting until 1994. And so there has been lawsuits in the past to challenge the constitutionality of redistricting. And so you're liable to see that again this time. But when we're drawing these up, I know in the Senate, we've been very careful to make sure that they're constitutional. I haven't seen the House plan. I don't
Me
know. I don't know how they'll pan out, but yes.
What's the deadline for redistricting?
Well, you know, supposedly the filing deadline to file for an office is the 4th Tuesday of January. I don't know what that date is, but we should be done a couple weeks prior to that. So we should be done in a couple weeks. That's when it should be. But there's nothing, if we pass the 4th Tuesday of January, then we would have to extend the filing deadline. Now, the primary election will not change, but the filing deadline could. So it will be very interesting to see how that all pans out. So stay tuned, and you know, myself, I really want to continue to be your state senator in Mercer County. I knew very few people. I knew Leon and Millwood when I started coming up to Mercer County back in 2009. But it's been a great experience, and like I said, you all have welcomed me, and it's been a good relationship, and I want to continue that. So with that said, that's a whole lot about redistricting. The other 800-pound gorilla in the room is going to be the budget. As Kim said, you know, it's about, you know, if you remember the news from last year when the Senate, we didn't get the budget agreed during the regular session, went into a special session. We were holding out for some more cuts because we kept saying we're going to be $200 or $300 million short when we do the budget next time. And you know, we were right. We're $200 or $300 million short. Plus, there's projections that we might be $200 million short in Medicaid. And the $300 million that we're short does not include the actuarially required contribution for our pension plans. And that's going to be about $50 million. And when they did the SEEK formula, they were about $50 million short on the SEEK formula, so that doesn't include that either. So you know, you take $300 million plus $200 million plus another $100 million, you know, for long we're talking about real money. So it's going to be an interesting budget year. And you know, there's right now, you know, I think everybody would agree that we're all paying all the taxes that we can pay. We're carrying a big load as far as paying taxes. So raising taxes is out of the question. So we have to look for places to make sure that Kentucky is more efficient and find those places that we can make budget cuts. And you know, where do you cut? Well, in the last budget, we spent 85% of our budget to educate, medicate, and incarcerate the citizens of Kentucky. That's, you know, education, Medicaid, and our corrections budget. This year, that's gone from 85% to 89% of our budget will go to educate, medicate, and incarcerate. So there's only 11% of our budget left, and you can't get $500 million out of the rest of the budget. You'd probably be doing a 50% budget cut on those other items. So it will be interesting to see where we come up with the savings, and we're all ears. If you have any ideas you want to share with us, our buddy Bill Huff.
Yeah, Mr. Huff, I thought he might be here.
Yeah. He sends us, he makes sure every day he lets Kim and I know how we can save money in the state budget, and he knows what he's talking about, and sends us some very good information. So I don't know how many of them we can implement, but it is good to be armed with that information. So that's always good information. So again, use that message line, call us at home. My card has my cell phone number on it. You know, give us a call. But you know, when I first ran for office, I told people I knew a little bit about everything and really thought I did. Until I got to Frankfort and figured out real quick I didn't know anything about a whole lot of stuff. And when we get into the budget, you know, we need, you know, all of you have an expertise in something. So, you know, share that expertise with us and bend their ear. That's what we're there for. We work for you, and we'd like to hear from you. Another issue that you'll hear a whole lot about, illegal drugs and illegal use of prescription drugs. Somehow I ended up being the go-to person on the peel meal bill legislation. In 2009, my first year in the Senate, Elizabeth Torrey had a bill to ban peel meals, and what I mean by a peel meal, it's a pain management clinic. Now there are some legitimate pain management clinics in Kentucky. I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but the ones that we're after are ones that come in and disguise themselves as pain management clinics, and all you do is go and give them $200 cash, and the doctor writes a prescription for 90 of whatever your drug of choice is, and they have, you know, sprung up all across Kentucky. But in 2009, when that legislation was filed, I really didn't give it much thought, and Elizabeth Torrey was trying to gather support for her bill, and I kind of ignored her, and the bill never went anywhere. And lo and behold, last year, I had a young lady to call me. You know, Marion County, for years there was no employment in Marion County. We put people like Leon all over the state of Kentucky that are from Marion County. And this young lady lived in Grayson, Kentucky. And so she called me one day. She was in Olive Hill, and she called me and says, I'm looking at the Olive Hill paper, and there's a quarter-page ad for a pain management clinic in Lebanon. I said, there's not one here. I know what's going on in Lebanon. There's no pain management clinic here. It must be a misprint. So we wait a little later that day. She goes back home to Grayson, and she calls me again. She says, in the Grayson paper, there's a quarter-page ad for a pain management clinic in Lebanon. And I said, well, I really don't think one's here, but give me the address and I'll go look. And it was Lebanon Trade Center, Leon. And I went to the Lebanon Trade Center, and lo and behold, and that's just a couple blocks from my store. Lo and behold, there was a pain management clinic. And we got to work on it, and working on it, my son wrote some articles and put them on the internet, and the local paper did some stories on them. And we called the OIG, the Office of Inspector General. But anyway, about 3 weeks, they moved out in the middle of the night. So anyway, in 2011 session, I filed a bill to ban the pain management clinics, the fly-by-night type. And Bill Dahl with the Kentucky Medical Association stopped me one day, and he says, do you realize what your bill does? And I said, no, I just know it's supposed to eliminate pain management clinics. He said, well, it makes them get a certificate of need. And I said, well, good, because I know how difficult the certificate of need is to get. And he said, well, that's really not the way you need to do it. So I started meeting with all the partners and people that had an interest in the bill. League of Cities, the Kentucky Medical Association, the Board of Medical Licensure, and Van Ingram with the Governor's Office of Drug Control. And we worked on a piece of legislation, and I filed that this time. So we're working on that. We'll also be legislation to deal with the Casper system. Right now, Casper is required for the pharmacist to use Casper system, but it's voluntary for the physicians whether or not they use it. So you'll see some legislation to probably require more use of the Casper system. And then the pseudoephedrine bill that, that was filed last year, which would require anybody that uses the pseudoephedrine or anything with pseudoephedrine in it. Right now, we have a system in Kentucky called Meth Check. So if you go to buy those drugs, they're kept behind the counter at the drugstore or wherever you buy them. And you have to show an ID, and it goes into a database, and you're only allowed to buy so much per month. What some states have done is require people who want that medication to go to a doctor and get a prescription and have it by prescription only. To cut down on these the people who make meth from getting the pseudoephedrine. And what they do, they hire people we call Smurfs to go around and buy this medication for them, and so they can make their meth. So there'll be that legislation, and there's a lot of debate about that, and so that will be something that we'll hear a lot about this year. Countless other bills. Those are the ones that you've seen a lot. I don't know if any of you saw KET last night. Speaker Stumbo and David Williams and Jeff Hoover and R.J. Palmer were on there and discussed the upcoming session. And like I said, there was most of the talk centered around the budget and pseudoephedrine, peel meals, that sort of thing. They never did get around to probably the question we get asked the most, I do, is about gaming, about the constitutional amendment, and that will be something to be front and center this time also. So with that said, I'll let Kimbo, she's probably thought about a few more things to talk about since I've been rambling, and we'll open it up here shortly for questions.
I did cover the ones that I had written down that I thought you might be most interested in, and I'm always a big question and answer person. I think that lets you ask the questions about the topics you're most interested in, and I think that's the most fun. So.
Okay. Well, let's do that then. If we'll just kind of open it up for questions, and really want to thank everybody again before I forget for coming out this morning. This is an awesome crowd. I do a lot of these. I try to do one in every county, and I can guarantee that no other county do we get this kind of response. So it says a lot about Mercer County and Harrisburg. So thank y'all for being here this morning. Any questions?
Casino gambling, how do you feel about it?
Okay. Well, the casino gambling, how do we feel about it? Number one, there's the only way that if you look at Speaker Stumbo and some of them in the House, they claim that they can do this without a constitutional amendment. And I don't see how that would be possible. I do know there are ulterior motives for that for a couple of reasons. One, there's a real concern if it's put on the ballot in 2012 that back in 2004 when we had the marriage amendment on the ballot, that was the year that Melwood, and I do know it's Millward, okay, but he made the mistake one time of telling the story about Lonnie Napier campaigning for him, and Lonnie said that he'd known him forever, and then introduced him as Melwood, and so he made that mistake. So he's really known around Frankfort as Melwood, not Millward. Okay? So when you hear me call him Melwood, I know better.
I've been on the worst.
Probably still now. You probably still, yeah. As county judge, that's where the rubber meets the road. But I lost my train of thought there, so I had to backtrack. Yeah, right, constitutional amendment. Sorry about that. But in 2004, we had the marriage amendment, and a lot of Republicans won. We picked up a lot of seats in the House of Representatives that year because that constitutional amendment was on the ballot. They're afraid of the same thing happening in 2012. So that's number one reason they don't want us to vote on it. They want it to or don't want the constitutional amendment, they just want to vote it in. And they claim that we don't have to have a constitutional amendment. The other thing is there's a fear that if you do the constitutional amendment, that takes 3/5 of majority. It takes 60 votes in the House, 23 votes in the Senate. Where if you just vote on it to approve it, it's just a simple majority. So to have that constitutional amendment, there's a fear that they won't have the constitutional amendment, won't have that 3/5 majority. The other fear that they have is that when this goes on the ballot, there's a good chance that it will lose. I mean, it's a real good chance. Not everybody's in favor of it. I think everybody's in favor of voting on it, or a majority of people are in favor of voting on it. But I don't think there's a clear-cut majority that will vote for the constitutional amendment. So there's a good chance that it will lose. And if it loses, it won't be heard again in Kentucky. It won't be dealt with again for a long, long time. So there's a lot of fear from certain circles not to put it on the ballot. But that's the only way that it ever be approved in the Senate. And I don't know that there'll be enough votes in the Senate to meet the 3/5 majority, the 23 votes. I haven't counted votes. I don't know that if anybody has counted votes, but I know that vote will be very close. Where I stand, when I ran I made that commitment a long time ago when I ran for office. Coming over here, I heard somebody on the radio said that New Year's resolutions were like politicians' promises. They didn't last very long. They were soon over. But I did make the promise when I ran for office that I would support a constitutional amendment because I did surveys, and that's what the majority of the people in my district wanted. Even those that were morally opposed to it, I wanted to say it. I want to vote on it, and so that's where I'm at. It will be an issue that gets a lot of attention in this session, and it'll be in the news every day until something is done on it, till the vote happens, and it either passes or fails. And you know, the Speaker Stumbo has said repeatedly that they don't want to take it up in the House, they want us to do it in the Senate. I don't know that it'll start in the Senate. I don't know that we'll do that. So it's just too early to tell what will happen. So stay tuned and feel free to, again, bend my ear on that. I'm all ears, even though I have made a commitment that I would support the constitutional amendment, but that doesn't mean I'll support anything on a constitutional amendment. It had to be the right. It had to see it. It had to be the right thing.
Yes, sir. What do you hear about funding for infrastructure projects, water, sewer, roads? I heard them say we're going with the transportation budget.
Well, the transportation budget will, you know, it's, of all the things in Kentucky, the transportation budget is in good shape. We've seen some real good growth in the money coming into the transportation fund, and where we get money for the transportation fund is gas tax, and also when you buy a new vehicle, sales tax from new vehicle or used vehicle sales. That money goes to the transportation fund. And that's a separate budget, and that's very healthy. So we will have the transportation budget. I know Kim's worked very hard, and Melwood and I and the mayor, we have met and talked about projects for Mercer County, and it's very important that we get those projects in the budget, because it is important to a community. And new roads for economic development, industrial development, are very important, as for public safety. New roads are very important. So that will we will be a lot of discussion about that. As far as the water and sewer projects, Kim mentioned that part of what the governor did in the past 2 years to balance the budget, we refinanced or really pushed about $500 million worth of bonding that we should have made payments on during these 2 years. We pushed that all forward. So it was almost like we refinanced, or we recommitted $500 million worth of bonding. So really, you're not going to see a lot of bonding done this year, because we've really already done it. We didn't make hardly any payments on bonding in these 2 years. We pushed it out into the future. And you hear talks about a debt ceiling for Kentucky. We've always tried to keep what we owed, or what we bonded, at 6% of the budget, and so we're right there at that number now. So, but I would like to see us be able to do some water sewer projects. I know here in Mercer County we've got several projects that we really need to do. So let me get him here.
There was recently a case where the Fish and Wildlife Department bought some land in Scott County at a price that was higher than that same land had sold for recently, in an economic time when land is actually appreciated in value. And I know that state government is kind of broke up into these cabinets or departments and things that kind of have a lot of autonomy, but it comes back to the legislature being the only people who can provide any oversight over that. I kind of wonder about the wisdom of that. Is the legislature going to look into that and think why we did something like that?
That program's been around for some time. I know a couple of years ago they bought about the same amount of property in Marion County. Didn't pay hardly as much as they did for it in Scott County. Of course, the Fish and Wildlife is self-sustaining, self-funding, but there has been a lot of interest in us looking into that. So yeah, I'm sure we will be doing that this time to see, because they have their own governing body, their board, and no state funds every year are dedicated to them. What they selling their hunting and fishing license, plus money they get from the federal government, that's the money they have to operate on. And usually the legislature does real good with entities that we have, that we budget their money for, because we can always get their attention by cutting their funding. Fish and Wildlife, we don't have that opportunity to do that. So, but we will be. I'm sure that will come up.
I just wanted to mention from our briefing from Mary Lassiter on December the 20th. It's been estimated that our general fund revenues will go up a 2% increase in the 2012 fiscal year, and our road fund revenues are expected to go up 5.5% to 6%. But those are directly related to gas prices, and as long as they stay high, that could be maintained. But if gas prices go down, then that won't be as high as projected. Going back to gaming, I want to answer that for you as well. I agree with all the reasons that Jimmy mentioned, and also I hadn't heard, but last night on KET. I'm just a nerd that watches KET on Monday nights, but anyway, Speaker Stumbo also mentioned that he has concerns that if we specifically name horse tracks or race tracks, whatever they're called, as the beneficiaries, he's afraid that will be challenged in court, and doesn't feel that could be considered as completely legal. So that's even one more concern. When this is gosh, been an issue for 15 years here in Kentucky. And I've only been elected for a year and a half now, but when I was just a layperson, I worked very, very hard here in Mercer County to try to prevent that, and I still don't think it's a good idea personally. That's my personal view on that. I did campaign in the last year and a half that I don't think either side, whether you're for or against it, is going to hush until you all vote on this. I don't believe Kentucky ought to be a referendum state for sure, but this has just gone on so long, and each side is so contentious. I don't think it's going to be decided until you all have the opportunity to vote on that. So I'm not going to say I'm definitely for the constitutional amendment bill until I read the exact language. It's going to have to be written fairly and not picking winners and losers, and a lot of concerns that I have on that. But I am for letting you all vote on that. And then as a layperson, I'll be working in my community to try to convince people that it's not a good idea. So that's where I stand on that.
There's no reason that they bank a lot of money is kept in out-of-state banks. Big banks, it's not real stable. It's had a lot of trouble with anything to do that really. I read on the internet.
I've received a lot of emails on that. Of course, our retirement funds have, we really don't, we need to watch them closer. And I think they've been using, they do a lot of business with Wall Street and that sort of thing. So that's one issue, what they do. Now, as far as the state goes, I've really never known us to use out-of-state banks, but that's something that I have a note to ask about when we get into our appropriation revenue meetings, because I've probably received several hundred emails about that very issue. Is Kentucky using out-of-state banks? And I don't know where that originates. I don't know. I honestly don't. Afterwards, I'll get your phone number and I'll let you know when I find out. Leon?
From the insurance world, we're concerned about the scrap metal dealers, how easy they buy the metal. Sometimes it encourages, or at least it doesn't discourage theft. What do you think the Senate or the House will be working on toward making it a tougher regulation? Bill Farmer in the House has a piece of legislation already filed that you couldn't sell metal, scrap metal, copper, any of that unless you were a contractor or electrician or something of that nature. I don't know how that would I don't know if that would fly. And I've also seen a proposal, because of a lot of the that's sold is pretty much for buying drugs, to make sure that instead of paying cash for it, the buyers of the scrapyard would wait 30 days to pay for it, and it'd be paid for by check. I've seen that proposal, and it is. I know it's bad. It's very bad. In fact, in Lebanon this past weekend, the storm grates, they stowed a bunch of those. There's orange cones all over town blocking the, so it's a shame we had to lock up your storm grates, or drainage grates to make sure they don't steal those. So it is an issue, and I've heard, you know, somebody leave for the weekend, go back home, and all their wiring and water lines and all that's been stolen. So it is an issue, and you will see legislation. Those two bills, I have seen information on those two bills, and if you have information on something that we can do to better do that, then let us know on that.
Yeah, I sent Kim the South Carolina bill.
Yeah. Leon and I have worked fairly closely on that all summer and fall, and yes, he's very interested in how South Carolina handles this, and I've been in constant contact with LRC and the research arm of that commission all summer and fall, and they tell me it's actually more of an enforcement issue. Our regulations are good, but at the scrap metal places, they aren't enforcing the rules that we have in place. People have kind of had a little personal sting operation, and they'll go in and they're supposed to show ID and log that in, and they leave with their, you know, their cash for their scrap metal, and in a legitimate way. It wasn't stolen, obviously, but they were never checked, and the rules that we have in place were never enforced. So personally, I think we need to enforce the laws that we have, and that can be said across the board in so many ways. But we're also interested in how South Carolina has approached that, and we're still working on that.
I'm not against anybody getting federal assistance as far as EBT cards or anything like that if they need it. But something I have an issue with and have for years is that none of us in this room can write a check anywhere without showing an ID. But people can take an EBT card, sell it, take it to a grocery store. As long as they know that 4-digit code, they can use it. And I know they're talking about drug testing people that get assistance like that. But if that's the person that's actually getting it, I don't see that that's going to help. I mean, you know, to me, they should have to show an ID when they use their food stamp card or this, that, you know, because there's so many people. We had some friends that he suddenly lost his job, and they tried. They couldn't get it at all, and there's people on there that's on there for generations and generations, and, you know.
I'm not familiar with in the Senate how you all dealt with that last year, but in the House side, Lonnie Napier had bills actually addressing both of those. One, the drug testing for people on government assistance, and then also showing photo ID. And I was a co-sponsor of both of those last time. I totally agree with you that, I mean, this shopping season, I couldn't cash a check at Elder Beerman in Frankfurt without showing my photo ID. So, I mean, I don't think that's a burden. I don't think that's too much to ask. I fully anticipate Lonnie, you know, refiling those bills again this year to do that. I don't know about the Senate side.
Well, one of the problems with us having the drug testing on the government assistance and food stamps and SSI and that sort of thing, that's federal. That's all federal dollars. They're administered by the state, but it's federal dollars, so we really can't legislate stuff to deal with that. So it really had to be federal legislation to require the drug testing. As far as the IDs, that's a good idea. We've been working. I was on the Childhood Obesity Task Force, and we've been working on some things. And there's things we can and cannot do. It's a federal program. We'd have to petition the federal government to allow us to do certain things. So that's something I'll add to my list and ask on that. I did file a bill. One thing we can do for drug testing is the state does provide a lot of money for training for unemployed people, job training and going to send them back to school, and there's a lot of money spent by the Workforce Development Board, and Drew would probably agree with me. I filed a bill, if you're going to get that assistance, you would be subject to drug testing, because we're training them to go into the workforce. Very few workplaces anymore where you go to work that you're not drug tested. So I think that's just part of their training to get ready for that drug test when you get a job. And so we can do that because that is state money. But we can't do it on the food stamps and SSI, even though we'd love to. I think it's, and if we ever do that, we probably should include, I'm a real proponent of if we ask somebody to do something, then we should do it in the legislature. So I think if Lonnie's bill,
Be fine.
we'd have to be put on there that we would be drug tested also. You know, that's kind of roundabout's fair play. Somebody else had their hand up there. Yes.
Recognizing the difficulty with the budget, one of the things we're hearing out of Frankfurt is that they're looking at reallocating some funds that were passed in the past. And one of them is the monies for the Kentucky Agricultural Heritage Center and eliminating that. How are you all in a position to protect us in that as we try to bring that to full fruition of 2012, 2013?
That's a good question, and you know, Melwood and I have had a lot of discussions about that $10 million. That money is appropriated; it had to be reappropriated, and I've sit on the A&R committee, and I try to make sure that doesn't happen. I will tell you that there's a lot of other communities that are starting to say we'd like to have that heritage center. In fact, two other counties that I represent have contacted me to ask me to write letters of recommendation for them, and I've told them, sorry about your luck, but it's staying in Mercer County. So we will continue to work on that. It's really been it's been clear as mud. This whole thing has been, I guess, when let me turn my dog off here. So we will continue to watch that, but hopefully we can get that resolved before long, because the longer it goes, the more pressure there's going to be from. And like I said, I can tell you that Nelson County and Taylor County are both actively campaigning to have that moved to their community.
Well, I think one of the big things right now is getting the state to turn loose of the self-bonding at the Ag Heritage Center. The board is ready to move forward, but at this point it's time to still move.
Well, that pretty much probably centers out of the governor's office, because the legislature has approved the bonding. And the governor's office of ag policy is probably where we need to go. But we really do need to get together and visit with the governor and get that puppy put to bed. And because if this continues to move along into the future, it really that is in jeopardy. Mercer County being the home to that, because like I said, there's a lot of other people that are, I know they're actively campaigning against you. They're not real happy with me because I won't support them, but that's, you know, it belongs here in Mercer County. And I can see Jill obviously is up here for a reason, and but I will stick around if you know any of you. And I know Kim has to leave for another meeting, but she'll probably be here too.
I can be here.
So you know, feel free to, if you want to bend our ear, do take a card back there if you like, and do keep in touch with us, because it is important. And we haven't forgotten that we do work for you. And we're not there to vote on things the way we see it. We're there to represent you and vote on things the way you want. One other thing I will say real quick, Jill, we spend a lot of time, Kim and I both do, on constituent services. You know, Susan will tell you that we get involved in a lot of things, and we get a lot of results. Sometimes, most time we do get good results, but sometimes we don't. But just this past weekend, I had, or yesterday, 3 calls. Had a guy that, her lady from Lebanon, her brother wants to take a boat down the Kentucky River, and it has a very tall mast on it, and I got to find out for her what the clearance heights are on the Kentucky River. Another one has a relative in a personal care home, and they're a ward of the state, and they want to try to get to be the caretaker or the overseer for that person, and where they can get them out of the personal care home and move them back to their home. So there was another one, I forgot what it was. Another one, the gentleman got a DUI over the weekend. He has a CDL license, and I'm supposed to find out from him how long his CDL license will be suspended because of his DUI. So there's always questions for us. That's what we do. So we do a lot of that, even though what we get, most people see is what we do in Frankfurt. We spend a great deal of time on constituent service work, and so don't hesitate if somebody has a problem, send them to us. We'll try to. They might not always like the answer that we get them, but we will get them an answer.
Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. We have a couple door prizes, and Kim has got a Harrodsburg Opoly game back there and a cup. So Miss Kim, if you'll pick a name out of here. And who do we have here?
John Reynolds.
Yay! All right, John, so Harrodsburg Opoly game for you. It's in the back. Okay, and then cup.
Coffee mug back there, and while we're digging, there are U.S. and Kentucky Constitutions. Thank you. If your family does not have a copy of the U.S. and Kentucky Constitution, someone's holding it up back there, Miss Lucy Hopper-Smith, I think. Please take those. And there are also Kentucky activity books that help explain how a bill becomes a law, describe all of the Kentucky symbols, that kind of thing for children, and it's very helpful for adults as well. What was this for, the mug?
The mug.
Harry Hughes.
Yay! All right, now we've got one more. Perry, you're going to pick one out. This is from the Harrodsburg Herald and Corning. This is a fax machine with supplies.
Play slow?
Oh, no. Okay, Clay, can I put you back in there? Okay.
Plays out.
I've got several.
Julie Kuhn.
Julie Kuhn? All righty, in the back. Great. As you heard, Jim and Kim are going to stick around for a little bit. Kim's got a little bit more time to speak with you because I know I got something from the superintendent of the school to mention to you all. So please do that. There's still coffee. There's still goodies. Thank you for Mr. Quick for the coffee and Fudge Company for our goodies today. Thank you, Drew and the Industrial Authority, along with the Chamber for sponsoring today. And Kim King and Jimmy Higdon, we appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Have a good day. Thank you.